The constitutional amendment has been a very, very hot topic with a lot of, different factions of society citing their different opinions. In today's live stream, we are going to be listening to your opinions because Z Corner is a people's platform. And on this particular platform, your opinion really does matter. And of course, in today's topic, right? Honorable Mpundu, who happens to be the Nkana member of parliament, is going to be helping us decipher all the things that you need to know and understand about the constitutional amendment, which could happen, could not happen. Nobody really knows. This is definitely a hot topic. This is one of the reasons why a lot of your opinions will definitely be truly appreciated. And as we continue going on with the program, we are going to invite a lot of you guys to participate. So you are going to look out for a link, which is going to be in the comment section. It's going to lead you to StreamYard, which is going to be able to facilitate you joining this particular program. With that little bit of introduction, Honorable Mpundu, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Muna. It's been a long time. It's good to see you, my brother.
Yes.
Allow me to greet those that may be joining us this evening.
It's a pleasure always having you. And the last time we had a conversation, right, a lot has happened. You are now the MP of Nkana constituency, well, for the past 3 years. And I'm sure a lot has been happening. So how has been your journey so far?
Well, it's been a long time. We've not spoken since I became MP, right?
We haven't, yes.
So a lot has been happening, my brother. Much of what, look, first of all, I want to sincerely thank the people of Nkana. When we spoke, you and I, we were, canvassing, support from the people of Nkana. And they were gracious enough to be able to afford me this opportunity to represent them. And so I will eternally be grateful to them for this opportunity. I may not be the best person for the job. What I've tried to do over time is to be able to give out my very best. Unfortunately, I have learned in life that you can't give more than you can. Okay, what we ought to do is to strive to give our very best. There were a number of commitments that I made to the people of Nkana, particularly addressing the developmental deficiencies in the constituents. I'm very proud today, Muna, that a number of those, things that I had committed to addressing, I can say that almost 90% of those are already, being handled as we speak. I may not be able to completely handle all of them in my 5-year term, but I think that I should be able to walk proudly, having handled most of the contentious issues in the constituency. So it's been a mixture, of experiences, I should admit. Much of what I had thought Parliament would be is not what I have found. For instance, I just walked out of Parliament now in frustration after 2 of my colleagues were sent out, for 7 days by the Speaker in very unfair circumstances, I think those of you who follows Parliament would agree with me that in that Parliament, there is no freedom whatsoever. We are gagged, we are treated like second-class citizens at the hands of the presiding officers. For the very first time in the history of this country, we have had rules of Parliament, which we call standing orders, being, coined up by the Speaker and our team, because the Constitution dictates that the MPs shall prescribe their own rules in what is referred to as the, standing orders. So today we are confronted with a very sad situation where the Speaker and a small team has had to decide, those rules on their own without the involvement of, the members of Parliament. And so the parliamentary democracy that we all would want to see in Parliament is not there. And that is why sometimes people want to think that we, the young people, cantankerous, okay? Mischievous, as others would want to suggest, but it's just that some of us do not want to stand by the status quo. We would always want to challenge the status quo. You cannot be in the house of the people, and yet you are not allowed to speak. These days, it's extremely difficult for you to even, finish your sentence. Otherwise, the Speaker will reprimand you for using any word she's not comfortable with, let alone there's always this thing of bring evidence. How do you ask for evidence on something that is in public domain? Okay, so it's been a very interesting journey, very confusing and very frustrating at the same time. But here we are. It's a learning curve for a lot of us.
Definitely. So, obviously, today's conversation is going to be concerning the constitutional amendment, and you happen to be a member of parliament, so you are very close to the, decision-making arena. Obviously, you have, and you also hold a lot of insights with regards to what is happening. So, according to you, constitutional amendment, what is your take on it? Is it the right time? Do we need a constitutional amendment? How does this affect each and every one of us? And what parts of the constitution specifically need to be amended if need be?
Muna, I like to always suggest that we need to be very honest with one another. The issue of the constitution needs us to have a very candid conversation, very honest conversation with one another. The challenge we have today is that we have become a very polarized, politically polarized, country. We are a very politically charged, country at the moment, such that it is becoming, very difficult by the day to be able to have a very normal conversation, to be able to undertake anything that meaningful because of these divisions. Okay, those of our people who argue that we are not divided, we have become a very regionally divided, country, and it is very sad when people are not united. It will be very difficult for us to be able to achieve any meaningful development for our country. So let me start by stating, Muna, that
Mhm.
embarking on a constitutional reform process is not strange. It's not a strange phenomenon. It's not like we are reinventing the wheel. It is always envisaged. I think the constitution does provide that after a specific period, you can embark on, constitutional amendments. And so it's a question of, do we need to amend the constitution now? What exactly would we be wanting to amend now? So what is very important is to establish, critical fundamentals in undertaking any constitutional reform. As a starting point, it is important that, number one, you build consensus. All right. The reason why
Right.
we have failed to have a very good constitution is that we have not had, built consensus on a number of issues. Okay. So it's important that we strive to build consensus. That's number one, very important, very fundamental. Number two is that we must all agree as to what contents, okay, must be attended to in that constitution, which is why the content and consensus are like one package. Okay, you highlight what sort of what parts of the constitution must be amended, and then you build consensus on these, contents of the constitution. Then, secondly, when you agree on the contents, okay, then you also now agree on the roadmap. How are we going to do this amendment? What are we going to use? Are we going to use a conference? How are we going to engage people? Are we going to be going into provinces? So you agree on a roadmap. But also number three is that you now agree on a time frame. What period do we
Mhm.
want to deliver this constitution? So three important things. Number one is that you must agree on the contents of that, amendment draft, and then
Mhm.
build consensus on those. When you do that, then you must now agree on the roadmap or what process you are going to take. Do you take straight away, take that to parliament, or you're going to, go around to, get inputs from the people? And then secondly, or rather lastly, you also must agree on the time frame in which you can deliver that amendment. Now, there's been a mention of the UPND wanting to undertake this process from the day they were elected in 2021. Interestingly, when this conversation used to arise, I remember as a member of a group of independents being called for a meeting, during which meeting they were asking us to identify or submit non-contentious issues that we thought could easily be attended to in the Constitution. So the process of amendment by the UPND, or the suggestion or the stories of amendment, started, I think, as far back as 2021. So we've always known that the UPND were intending to undertake a constitutional amendment process. Okay, except that at some point, this story had died down. And I want to believe at the back of my mind that I think that the UPND looked at the numbers in Parliament and they were not comfortable, because for you to be able to amend the Constitution, you may need 2/3 of the members of Parliament. And, a few months ago, I think that the UPND had not been able to garner the necessary numbers for them to be able to attend or be able to successfully change the Constitution. And so this is not something, it's not caught us by surprise. We've always anticipated that there's going to be this thing coming our way. Now, the other issue when this story started popping up was a mention of the clauses that the UPND were going to amend. Now, at that stage, it was all but speculation, because we could hear suppositions that they wanted to remove the 50+1. We heard that they were attempting to remove the term limitation, meaning that one could run as president for as long as he wished, as opposed to the current status quo of one running only for 2 terms. And there was also a mention of the UPND wanting to remove the capping on the time, or the time frame of a term, from 5 to 7 years, as well as issues like the running mate and stuff like that.
Is that speculation or factual?
So now, when this story of the amendment started, like I said, these were basically mere speculations. All right. Up to this stage, there's nothing that is concrete, or that has been really agreed as to what the UPND is going to put in the amendment, other than 2 issues that have become very prominent in the conversations, especially in the statements that the president has made, which is delimitation as well as proportionate representation. Otherwise, all these other issues I've mentioned too were basically speculation that were made from the very first day we were told that the UPND were attempting to amend the Constitution. So now, I did mention in my preamble.
Sorry for cutting you off. Because, most of the times when we dwell on speculation, right, a lot of information can be misconstrued by a lot of listeners and other people out there. So this is one of the reasons why I would like us to dwell on things that you consider deserve to be amended, because I know for a fact there are a lot of lacunas, there are a lot of loopholes that can really transition our state into chaos if not properly scrutinized. So what I would love to hear from you or understand from you is what things deserve to be amended, and talking about the contentious, the non-contentious, and all these Bill of Rights, according to you, what things genuinely deserve to be amended when it comes to the Constitution?
So remember, Mona, that I started by maybe making a preamble to what this issue is, where we are coming from. Where we are coming from is a place where we only heard this as a rumor, that there were going to be a constitutional amendment. And part of the rumor was also a suggestion of what clauses the UPND were contemplating to amend. All right. Now, here we are. Officially, the UPND has now made a statement indicating that they are now ready to want to proceed to amend the Constitution. Now, at this stage, again, I want to say, Muna, that we are still in the dark as to what the government would want to amend, other than for 2 issues that have become very, prominent in the conversation that everyone has made, vis-a-vis the issue of delimitation as well as the issue of proportionate representation. Now, from where I stand, it is usually in our system, because remember, it is the mandate of Parliament to enact laws. Even when we want to change the constitution, it will still be a responsibility of Parliament. There is no other institution that can temper or handle constitutional amendments other than Parliament. Now, in any normal setup, I would have thought that Parliament would have been the initiator of any amendment of the law.
Right. So it looks like we have lost Honorable Mpundu. He'll probably be back.
Any law
Honorable Mpundu, are you
amendment
still there?
is usually initiated. Are you there, Mona? Okay, so
Yes,
I was trying to suggest
I can
that
hear you loud and clear now.
Right. I was trying to say that in normal situation, from where I stand, Parliament should have actually been the originator of any constitutional making process. Meaning that at Parliament we should even have the drafting department, such that if we want any law to be, or any proposition to be made into law, our drafting department at Parliament drafts it and we take it into enactment as a law, and then the president, assents to that law after the process is done at Parliament. But the scenario in Zambia is such that a cabinet originates. All right. Cabinet, the ruling party in that case are the ones who now originates any form of lawmaking. Even though there's a provision for a private member's bill, meaning that a private person like myself can initiate a process that will culminate into us enacting a law. But usually it is the government themselves that comes up with this, that starts this process. And we as Parliament, we only see the end of it vis-a-vis enacting the said law. Now, the ideal situation, Muna, would have been, that the UPND government would have made this proposal that, look, we want to amend the constitution, and these are the things that we want to deal with in the current existing constitution. After they make that presentation, I think that the normal situation would have then meant they then throw it to the public attended to. All right. So then you will have all the stakeholders having an input to this process. You will have cabinet themselves making a proposal of what they would want to attend to in the constitution. You would also have the Zambian people themselves, either through their members of parliament or through another process, also making submissions as to what should be included in that draft as we try to amend the constitution. Now, what is missing here is a defined process, okay? There's no agreed process, which has led to us being completely blank as to what is contained or what intentions the UPND government has vis-a-vis the intention to amend. So that alone is the biggest problem, which has, I think, led to all these misgivings that you are hearing from the people, because the president at one point is suggesting that we have agreed to amend the constitution. When you say we, remember, amending the constitution is not a UPND issue. It is not a cabinet issue. It's not a political party issue. It's not a cabinet issue. It's a national issue, meaning that there must be consensus. I spoke to consensus in my preamble. There must be consensus built on all the issues that you would want addressed in that constitution. If you were to ask me, I have a few things that I would love to see attended to in the constitution, all right? Things that I have found very alien in the constitution. As an argument point, this thing called hate speech. Hate speech has brought so much confusion. It has actually created an animal farm situation in Zambia, because whereas one would say this is hate speech or would utter a word, it will be called hate speech. The next person will utter the same word, but because it belongs to the UPND, he will go scot-free. So you cannot have a law that is so vague in the modern age. Seditious practice. seditious practice is a a law that was coined up by colonial masters at the time when we are agitating for independence. Again, in a time like this, you cannot have such a law. There are laws like proceeds of crime. Proceeds of crime is so vague as a law that has led to manipulation at the hands of politicians, thereby being used to fix others. So there are quite a number of issues, or rather clauses in the Constitution, that if you had given me an opportunity, I can submit as needing attention. So for me, I think that the
Honorable,
missing link.
how do we get to
Mhm.
reach consensus? What's the process of reaching consensus before any draft recommendations are sort of submitted?
Transparency, Muna, no two ways about. It's by government being transparent, being open, being forthcoming, being sincere. All right, it would start, like I said, from government. It will start from government. Government must create a list of things they want to attend to in the Constitution. All right, guys, we as a ruling party, these are things, we as cabinet, these are things that we think are not sitting okay in the Constitution. So you do that list, and then you call for submissions, all right, from the members of the public as to what they think should also be included or subtracted. Then that will then lead us to having a consensus. Okay, the general public feels this one should be added, this one should be removed. We can, you see, we can have a very smooth process of constitution amendment if we can only be transparent. But look at this scenario, Muna. Today, the president is saying there's a draft constitution. I think you heard him in Mongu when he was talking to the young people. He actually raised a document which he called a draft. He was basically saying we already have a draft, but people are commenting when they haven't even seen the draft, meaning cabinet already has a draft, but they've not circulated to the public. Meanwhile, the Minister of Justice goes on national television on Sunday interview and says, we haven't even arrived at having a draft. Now, this is contrary to what the president is saying. This is contrary to what the spokesperson for the president, Hamasaka, was actually saying, because Hamasaka, the president, and Honorable Jack Mwimbu have all agreed or suggested there's a draft constitution already. But
Honorable Mpundo, I think we're losing you again.
oh yeah, I'm here. So, but you see, the Minister of Justice, who is the owner of the process, comes to tell the nation there's no draft constitution. So that signals trouble, because the same cabinet cannot have these different stories, okay, or statements. You cannot have the president saying there's a draft and the minister in charge saying there's no draft. That is the beginning of the problem. And what should be done right is by going back to saying, let's have these proposals by the UPND thrown into the public. Okay, then the public will also give their misgivings, or they'll also give their input. Now, what the public would do is to scrutinize what proposals are being suggested by the government. They will agree to some or disagree with some. And then you also give an opportunity to the public through different stakeholders to also suggest what we, the public, feel can be, included in that, draft. This way, Muna, all of us will move in tandem, will move together. There will not be any acrimony. But for as long as this is not, dealt with, there will always be these speculations that there's something that the UPND are hiding. Because how is it convenient that on 3 occasions the president has spoken to the issue of the constitution amendment, and he has only highlighted 2 issues? That is delimitation and the proportionate representation. If you ask me, as somebody who reads between the line, I am thinking that the president is dangling a carrot to the young people, to hoodwink the young people, to think that the UPND, loves the young people. That is why they want to include them, in parliament. I
Honorable Mpundu.
believe that they are a carrot I want to also conclude that they're trying to dangle a carrot to the disabled. All right. That is why they are advancing the issue of proportionate representation, because it will excite the women, it will excite the youths, and it will also excite the disabled. Now, if there's
So
a person
what
who
would you
say,
say is, what would you say would be the sinister things that they would love to amend behind people's, backs, if you would put it that way? What things are happening in the background that we are not aware of as citizens? Since you keep on alluding to the fact that there is a lot of tricks that are happening behind closed doors. So, what, according to you, is the most dangerous amendments when it comes to the Constitution that people might or could not be aware of?
the obvious issues, Mona, relates to the issue of removing the 50+1, because at the rate the UPND is performing today, there's no way they can garner 50+1. And that reality is dawning on the UPN, that there's no way they can garner 50+1. So at the back of many minds, they are suggesting the UPN would want to take that off their way. Okay, the issue of running mate has also raised, quite, some issues in the recent past, and I would want to think that, the UPND would want to do away with the running mate, because it's a very, tricky, arrangement. I want to think that the UPND may want to attempt to do away with the term limitation. They would want the president to go further, because they've been talking about 2090. President Hakainde Hichilema will rule for 2090. Now, when you hear these statements being pronounced so much, until 2090, HH until 2090, how can how can he rule up to 2090 when the Constitution only gives him a maximum of 10 years? It means that these are some of the things that they are discussing behind, closed door, that let's open it up so that he can go forever. It can be a 1 year, yeah. So I will not be so far away from suggesting that they may attempt to remove the term limit. Then I will not be very far away to suggest that they may try to, increase the term, the tenure from 5 to 7 years. Okay, so but these, again, I want to say, are speculations. Now, there's something that I have arrived at, which I think I did make a video not long ago, that I know the UPND, I'm a competitor to the UPND, and I know them. They've become very canny. They'll come back to the Zambian people and say, look, we actually did not even want to do all these things that you suggesting we wanted to do, like the running mate, the 50+1, removing it, removing the tenure and stuff like that. And so they may come and present themselves like angels. Look, that was just propaganda. But I will tell you what the biggest issue is. The biggest issue for the UPND is delimitation. Okay, and delimitation is a very good idea, because it allows you to create more constituencies. In the process, it allows you to have an opportunity to deliver services and development to communities. But you see, there lies in a problem, which a lot of people are now beginning to realize that, wait a minute, in fact, these guys, this is a catch. Okay, because Muna, when you look at delimitation, okay, delimitation is dictated to by population, not necessarily the geographical size. Yes, the geography is also a consideration, but the biggest of consideration, the number one consideration in deciding which constituents must be delimited, is the population. All right. Already, Muna, you are aware that there's already misgivings around the statistics that was produced, the report that was given by Zamstat. It started, that misunderstanding started with the UPND themselves. The chairperson of the Civil Service Commission, Bean, actually disputed the report, the statistics report by Zamstat, saying it is a fake report, because according to him, he was saying that report had projected few numbers of or a smaller population for the South. He was actually suggesting that the South has got more numbers than was being projected in that report. So remember, that report, the census report, is what will inform delimitation. Because the bigger the population, the need for you to create more constituencies. So, Muna, it's a complex issue that unfortunately cannot be trivialized. It requires us to be open-minded, but most importantly, it requires us to sit on the table and agree, address all the misgivings that people are having. For argument's sake, Muna, I shudder to think why people would want to be bought off so easily by way of young people. We want to give you slots in parliament. All right. In the current constitution, young people can still go to parliament. The political will within political organizations is what has hindered young people from going to parliament. All right. Why was it not convenient as an argument point for the UPND to adopt many young people? Go to that parliament and see how many young people made it to UPND as members of parliament. All right. So if somebody today comes and say, look, we want to take you to parliament as young people, the question I would ask, why didn't you consider us as a young people when you're adopting? Because there were a number of young people that had applied. Secondly, there's an opportunity for the president to nominate 8 members of parliament. Why is it that out of the 8, the president didn't see the need to nominate at least even 1? Okay, why is it that the president didn't even nominate even a single disabled person? Either at adoption, there was no disabled who was adopted by the UPND. There was no disabled who was nominated by the president. So why is it then that the UPND would want now to come to the young people, the disabled and the women, and suggest that they now care for them and they want to create more space for them? So these misgivings are what is leading to people speculating that there's something sinister or something that they want to slot behind closed doors. They would come to present this very innocent picture, yet in the background, there's something they're considering, something that may actually end up to be evil.
So let's also talk about the issue of by-elections. Do you perhaps think the constitution needs to be amended due to the fact that we've been having a lot of confusions in the past and it has been a very hectic process to deal with? And if not really solved and amended, there could be a lot of bad things that can arise, and a lot of people can use this to manipulate elections, postpone elections, etc. Wouldn't you say this is a progressive amendment if we were to consider it to be one of the things that are going to be amended in the constitution?
So Muna, I want people to be very objective and open-minded as we look at these issues. Okay. By-election costs a lot of money, on the country, which money could have gone to deliver, services and development. All right. And if there was a way, by-election must be avoided. But you see, it is important to realize that the people must have the longest hand in, deciding who leads them. All right. So when you talk about by-election, I would want to marry it with the issue of proportionate representation, because proportionate representation, if you have a deep understanding, because nobody has taken time to be able to explain what model are we going to use if we said proportionate representation, because there exists a number of scenarios that we can label proportionate representation. In places like in Kenya, they've created what they call special seats or provincial members of parliament, where they've said in each province there will be 2 slots for a woman and the youth, which must be competed with. Those, when they eventually are elected, they become provincial MPs. So it gives an opportunity for the women and the youth to also have slots. For Zambia's case, if that was the scenario, it means that it would have created 10 special seats for women and 10 special seats for the youth. Okay, that is if that is the model they will use. The other model would mean when we go into an election, depending on which political party, so you'll not be electing for a particular MP. So let's say Nkana, the people of Nkana will not be electing for particular members of parliament. They will be electing political parties. Now, after the count of votes, the political party that scores the most in terms of percentage will then be given the number of seats that they will take to parliament. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the UPND in an election gets 50%. Then they'll be given a chance to take 50% members of parliament members of UPND to parliament, meaning that they will then choose which people are going to go to parliament, meaning that you would have taken away the power of the people to be able to pick specific individuals they feel can represent them in their specific areas. So we must be very open-minded, and we must look at this very objectively. What is it that we want to cure? Because to amend the law, you must be attempting to cure a particular problem. As an example, if you are going to want to include young people, it must come from a realization that young people have not been given a chance to be in parliament. But as the case is now, the constitution does provide, or is actually clears it that young people can actually go to parliament, which is why there are a number of young people in parliament today, because the constitution allows. So if you say there's a problem or a lacuna, as they say, a lacuna, by the way, is a gap. There's no lacuna in regards to young people going to parliament. The law is very clear, young people can go to parliament. If the law was restrictive to young people, then we'll say there's a lacuna in regards to young people getting into parliament, but there's no lacuna, all right? So what are you trying to cure? Okay, when you say delimitation, the question must be, what are you trying to cure? So when we look at the constitution, we must clearly ask ourselves, what is it that we are trying to cure that exists in the constitution today that has brought problems? All right. So my plea, Muna, and many people that are engaging in this conversation, is to be very open-minded. We must not narrow down this conversation to, political aspirations or political, parties. Okay, I subscribe to UPND. For as long as I'm UPND, I'm going to support it. It is the reason why Bill 10 fell off. Because by the way, Muna, you will realize that most of all these proposals being made by the UPND were actually part of the Bill 10. I'm yet to hear any one of the clauses that was in Bill 10 that the UPND today will say was actually evil. But you see, the UPND fought Bill 10 because it was being proposed by the PF. Just like today, many people may make a mistake to want to fight this amendment process because you don't belong to the UPND. Just like others on the UPND would want to support this because they are UPND, as opposed to looking at all the proposals with an objective mind. All right? So, it is important that, number one, Muna, and I want to stress this, to avoid people making speculations, the government would do us a favor by starting to be transparent. All right? Let them list all the proposals they are making. Let them list them and be clear. For instance, if you're going to propose to do proportionate representation, you must be very clear as to what format are we going to take, because there exists a number of formats you can take in regards to proportionate representation. Secondly, if you are going to do delimitation, you must be clear from the day one that these are the constituents that we want to delimitate, and we are basing on this assumption that the population there is too big, or the geographical size is too big. So you cannot stop people from speculating if you don't give them the information they are asking for.
But I guess it's just a matter of time, and we are going to be updated in due time. So to all the people who are watching us right now, we are currently live talking about the constitutional amendment with Honorable Binwell Mpundu. And to all the viewers who are watching us right now, I'm kindly asking you to share this link on your YouTube video. If you are listening to me, kindly take 1 second and just share this live stream. And for those of you who would like to participate, check the link in the comment section in case you've got any other questions for Honorable Mpundu here. So now, Honorable Mpundu, when it comes to the constitutional amendment, obviously, one of the biggest issues is the issue of by-elections. And I believe you agree with me that on the issue of by-elections, there are definitely a lot of issues that need to be resolved. However, we have heard a lot of government spokespeople talk about the fact that they are only going to start with non-contentious issues, then move over to the contentious issues. Speaking about that, what is the proper timing for a constitutional amendment? When is it the right time to amend the constitution?
Well, for me, I don't think that there's a proper time to amend the constitution. All right. A constitution can be amended at any time. That's fact. The parliament is still mandated. In fact, the reason why we go to parliament is to enact laws, meaning that we can actually amend laws at any given time. So equally, the constitution amendment can be done at any given time. What is extremely important is that, as opposed to enacting a new law, when you are going to change the existing law, it requires that you build consensus. That is extremely important. There's difference with what we do every day at Parliament, where we are enacting new laws. Okay, changing the existing laws requires that you build consensus among the public. All right, because the constitution defines us. So there is no time frame that is designated for a constitutional amendment. But I want to believe that the constitution, I'm not just very clear about the article, does dictate that you will be amending the constitution every after 10 years. So within the 10 years, you can actually amend the constitution, which is why somebody was asking me, why don't you give the UPND time? And my response was that, look, we gave the UPND time from 2021 to rule us, okay, to manage the affairs of the country. It meant we gave them time to attend was need. We basically gave the UPND 5 years in which they could do anything they needed. Now, when you are heading towards the end of a term, right now we're talking about just 15 months to go, it becomes a very tricky time, especially considering how much time it takes. For instance, if you are going to consult people, the consultation process takes a long time, Muna. All right. So if you are going to then wait for the last minute to begin to attend to the constitution, again, you start rushing against time. I saw in the last sitting where the UPND were trying to push a bill into parliament on the last day of our sitting. They wanted us to do everything. In fact, the cyber security and cyber crimes law, they gave it 4 days, Muna. They bring that proposal to parliament and they expected stakeholders to sit within 2 days. And the third day, they wanted it to come to parliament. We pass it first reading, second reading, and the third reading. And we were here asking, guys, you had the entire session for you to be able to do this. Why would you want to rush this process on a very important piece of legislation that affects the entire nation? Okay, so this is what we are basically beginning to see, that a UPND which had 5 years can now come 14 months to go, and they want to rush the process because you cannot avoid the issue of consulting people, and consulting people takes some time. All right, that is why people are beginning to think there's something sinister going on behind closed doors, because there's no way our friends could have waited until the last minute to start rushing the process, as important as amending the constitution.
So now let's talk about the 50+1 and how detrimental this is, because for a lot of people out there, it's very difficult to decipher it. So can you kindly give us a breakdown of the 50+1 and how important it is, especially for the democracy of Zambia?
So our electoral system is a majoritarian system. Okay, the majority votes. The one who gets the majority votes gets to win the election. Now at presidential level, it dictates that for anyone who gets the majority votes, he must at least be able to score 50+1, meaning that 50% of the votes that have been casted, you must be able to get 50% of the votes that have been casted. I don't want to think that it says the registered voters. It actually talks about the votes that have been casted, okay, and counted. So when you count the votes nationwide, 50, you to win as a president, you must be able to have gotten 50% of those that voted +1. All right. If 50% meant 2 million votes, if you get 2,000,001, then you would have won the election. That is what 50+1, entails. Now, the reason why countries, decides on going the 50+1 way is so that you have a president who is voted for by the majority. Because it is possible that you can have a president that is not voted for by the majority. Okay, he only gets a meager votes. It's not a representation of the people. But when you have somebody voted for by 50+1, it is, suggested that he would have been voted for by the majority. And so the majority rules. Okay, that is basically what 50+1 is. And it is so much an important clause in the constitution that to try and tamper with that constitution can create chaos never heard of in this country.
And would you say 50+1 also works hand in hand with the delimitation of constituencies? So how can the delimitation of constituencies, affect the 50+1 if enacted?
Well, the two are not in tandem. I want to suggest. Look, what delimitation simply suggests is creating more constituencies. Let me give an example. If the registered voters in Nkana are 100,000 voters, right? What delimitation would do is simply to cut those voters in 50-50. So the 50,000 will be on one constituency, the 50,000 will be on another constituency, okay? It doesn't necessarily affect the presidential vote, because even if the constituency was not delimited, the 100,000 will still vote. Let's, for argument's sake, say out of the 100,000, 60,000 was voting for President Hakainde Hichilema. Even if you split the two constituencies, what that exercise will do is simply to create two MPs. Okay, but the 60,000 people will still be able to vote for President Hakainde Hichilema. Okay, except there will be others will fall on one side, the others will fall on one side. But the 60,000 votes is what is going to collect from two constituencies. Now, the issue of creating more constituents works in this way. Right now, there are fears that the UPND may not be able to get more members of parliament in places where they got more members of parliament. Because let's face it, things are not okay on the ground. I don't see the UPND being able to, get any member of parliament in Lusaka. Because look, Lusaka is a very urban, is an urban, community. And we... All right. Okay. I want to suggest that the UPND will also struggle in places like the Copper Belt. Or let me just conclude that I want to suggest that the UPND may struggle in most urban constituencies, meaning that they may come or they may fall short of the numbers they had in the last election, because the last election was about the wind and people thinking the UPND are saviors. Now that the people have seen that the UPND are actually nothing but a bunch of liars, chances are that they may not get the numbers in terms of MPs that they got. So you can then imagine what the UPND may try to do. They may try to create more seats in places where they are strong. Okay, they may try and create more seats in Southern Province because they know they will definitely have those seats. They may create more seats in Western and Northwestern Province. Besides, the latest census report, which ultimately will inform which constituencies can be delimited, has indicated growth in terms of population in the 3 regions where UPND is very strong. It has indicated growth in Southern Province. By the way, even the voter register has grown in Southern Province by 80,000 votes. You know why? It's because the UPND government continued to register voters and NRCs in the Southern Province from 2011. Whereas in other regions, they have not been conducting, the exercises. All right. So the latest census report indicates that in the strongholds of UPND, now when I say stronghold, there's nothing tribal about this statement. We are basically saying political parties have got strength. The PF is stronger on the northern part. The UPND is stronger on the regions or on the provinces bordering the Zambezi River. Okay, so what we're basically saying is that we've seen growth in terms of population on the provinces where the UPND apparently is stronger. Now, the population is what is going to inform the delimitation process, because usually the determinant of delimiting a constituency is population. And those areas where UPND is strong have grown in population, so they can justify cutting or creating more constituencies in those areas by way of them being more in population. So there's no relationship between the presidential vote, but what delimitation may do is to create more or less an advantage for the UPND. Peradventure, they create more constituencies in places where they are stronger. It means that whereas they may fail in Lusaka, or they may tumble in Lusaka, they may tumble in all urban constituencies or provinces like the Copper Belt, they may then equalize and do more because they would have created more constituencies in places where they are strong. And we're talking about the Zambezi provinces.
So speaking about delimitation of constituencies, wouldn't you agree that this would help implementation of CDF, because it is alleged that not a lot of parts of the country are able to utilize the CDF allocated funds due to the fact that they are just simply too big and it's not easy to manage them? Wouldn't delimitation help solve that problem?
It is laughable, Muna, and I want us to take a very, academic, view on this thing. First of all, the budget of Zambia, I think last budget should have been around 177 billion, kwacha. If not, no. I think last year, this 2025, we went over 200 billion. If you look at what was allocated towards the CDF, Muna, it should be around 5 billion, kwacha, if not a little slightly more. In terms of the percentage of the budget, that is just slightly around 2% of the budget. Okay. The challenge that has been created today is to think that development can only come through CDF. The true meaning of CDF is a supplementary to development, okay? The concept of CDF is that let us create a fund that will augment. When I say augment, I basically mean supplement the efforts of central government in addressing developmental deficiencies. It means that central government would have done its part. I'll give Nkana as an example. Central government would have done the roads, central government would have done the hospitals, central government would have done the schools. Then they give you as a constituent a supplementary fund to be able to attend to small issues. Now, there's a conception or misconception that has been built to suggest that we must be able to, or rather we must abdicate the responsibility of all the other line ministries and then leave development to only be championed by CDF. It can't be done, Mona. Let's take a very factual approach to Nkana as an example. Nkana is an urban constituency, all right? You give me 30.6 million or 36.3 million. You know what has happened to CDF is that they'll segment it into 4 facets. First of all, there's an administration of component which is 25% that goes to the council. So you remove that component to the council, it's about 1.45 million kwacha. Mwafumia momri 36.3 million. You remove it, you put it to the council for administration. Then you get 20% goes to empowerment funds. 20% goes to skills development. What remains to attend to actual community development is slightly around 15 to 17 million kwacha. Muna, I want you to get me right. So for a constituents like Nkana or Matero, when you remain with 17 million kwacha in a month, or in a year rather, let's go to Nkana. Nkana has got, I'll give you as an example, one problem. I have got 8 wards. In those 8 wards, I'll take just one problem I have in one constituency called Buchi and Kamitondo. This problem relates to sanitation. Okay, this problem of sanitation needed $7 million. $7 million is almost 200 million kwacha. You can then imagine, Muna, how many of those how many years it would take me if I'm being given 17 million per year through CDF to attend to that problem. It will take me roughly over 10 years to be able to attend to one problem in one ward out of all the 8 wards. So the notion that development should come through CDF is very flawed. CDF should be supplementary, meaning that you should never lie to the people that development can only come to you when we create more constituencies. The role of central government is to take development to every part of the country. Okay, if you want, you can even create districts. When you create district, whether you like it or not, you have to actually bring all the development needed. You need district offices, you need hospitals, you need clinics and all that. So to suggest that we need to create more constituencies so that we can take CDF there is basically using a very narrow view on how or what it takes to develop a country.
Understood. So there are a lot of viewers that would love to join us in this conversation, even though we're about to wind up because we've almost spent 1 hour. So to all the people who are asking us how they can join the program, all you have to do is look for the StreamYard URL in the comment section. So just click on the link and it will redirect you to our live stream right now. Anyhow, Honorable Mpundu, we have talked about the Constitution for a long period of time, and I have been hearing you talk about Ichavaiche. I want to understand the concept of Ichavaiche and what your plans are for the youths of Nkana and Zambia as a whole.
Sorry, I lost you there, Muna. You wanted to understand the concept of what Ichavaiche is about.
What is Ichavaiche and what are your plans?
Okay, so for a very long time, Muna, you are aware that young people have not been given chance to sit on the table of decision making for the country. I remember that since 1991, there are very few young people that have been given an opportunity to serve in government, let alone to even go to parliament. It's only now that we are getting to see more young people deciding to step out of their cocoon, okay, All right.
Right.
You know that a number of us young people went to parliament. We just basically defied the odds. After being left out of the adoption, we decided to walk solo. Okay. Now, so you will agree with me, Muna, that for a very long time, young people have actually participated in politics by way of being used as pawns. Number one, young people are actually the ones who does the actual campaigns. That's fact. I was a youth leader in the PF myself. You will not organize a youth rally without the young people. It's actually the young people who goes to organize youth rallies, and then the old will come and just address the people. When it comes to fighting opponents, whether it's violence or otherwise, it is the young people who are sent into those battles. If you want to have the numbers to win as an MP, let alone as a president, it is the young people who gives you the numbers. So from time in memory, it is the young people who have played the key role in propelling old people into politics. But what have the young people gotten? A raw deal. When everything is done, when the political game is contested, the winners are declared, the young people are thrown back into the terraces to be where they belong, to eat crumbs that are falling from the table. I am a typical example of what a system has done to the young people, despite having worked so hard for my political party. At a crucial time when everybody had decided, let's try a young person in 2016, they decided to ignore me. Again, I went soldiering on in the name of loyalty. In 2021, again, I applied. Again, they ignored me. At that point, I learned, I told myself that you don't stay in a place where you are not needed. So young people now have realized or must realize that you cannot continue to be used, or you cannot continue to stay in a relationship that is toxic, where you are not considered a valuable player. So what we've done is to create a platform where that can, take young people into leadership. All right. Whereas traditional political parties, as demonstrated in the last, adoption of 2021, do not recognize young people. We are saying in 2026, let's create a platform that will, give opportunities to young people to participate. Okay. Our desire as a young people is that in 2021, we want to see young people becoming councillors. We want to see young people becoming mayors. We want to see young people becoming MPs. Ultimately, we would want to see a situation where a young person becomes president. And so we created a special vehicle, which we are calling the Movement for Good Governance. Now, when you say Movement for Good Governance, some people cannot even pronounce it because you must include everybody. If you go to villages, people cannot even pronounce the Movement for Good Governance. Now, because we are targeting the younger generation, now when I say young is a very subjective word. It does not necessarily mean only those who are below 20 years or 35 years. Young is a very subjective word, meaning that even if you are 40, we actually call you young. Even if you are 50, Muna, or 45. By the way, Commonwealth recognizes anyone who is 45 and below to be a youth. But we are not even using the analog youth. We are actually saying young people. Now, a young person is young is subjective. It can actually include people who are 50. But the idea is you cannot completely be young or youth and lead the country. By the way, many youths that are below 35 cannot even make it to presidents because the Constitution does not allow anyone who is below 35 to be able to become president. All right. So you then need to blend the youth and the young or the senior youth. So anyone who is above 35 all the way to 50 can actually be called a senior youth. By definition, Commonwealth actually goes up to 45 to mean youth. But in this movement, we are basically saying young people. So the movement for good governance is basically a platform we've created for young people to now have a vehicle to ride on to go and sit on the table of decision making or to get involved in governance issues. We are not necessarily say to refer to completely young people. We can of course mix with the older generation, but the bigger proportion or percentage must be young people. If we suggest 60%, I think that is a fair call. 60% of us must be in parliament tomorrow. Okay, 60% of young people must be in councils. That is the desire. So we are being called the movement for good governance. But because we want everybody to be able to relate, and because we are speaking to young people's aspiration, we have coined up a slogan. We are calling it Chabafana or Njabana or Sabanana, or you can call it Kiabanike. In Bemba, we are calling it Ichabaiche. You know that because Copper Belt and Lusaka speaks more of Nyanja and Bemba, that is why the word Ichabaiche is more pronounced. But our intention is that if you go to Western Province, you must not call this movement as Ichabaiche. You must call it Sabanana. Okay, if you go to Western Province, you must be able to call this movement as Kiabanike. The idea is this is for young people. So very simply, we have just created a special vehicle that should be able to carry all the young people into governance or to participate in governance. Enough of young people being ridden on. They've been riding on you. You've been ladders for so many years. Our approach now through this movement is that as opposed to being used as ladders, we are throwing away the ladders. We are now going to step into the elevator, meaning that all of us will rise together. So this is not a situation of anyone wanting to use the young people. This is a situation of the young people wanting to rise into power.
So how do people get to be part of that particular movement? Where should the people sign up? Where is the train? Where is the elevator door?
So what we've done, Mona, today we are dealing with technology, okay? Technology rules now, and we are a modern generation that must not be left behind. So when you express interest to join the movement Ichabaiche, we are providing social platforms, okay? We have WhatsApp groups everywhere across the country. So we have opened up chapters. So as a way of being initiated into the movement, we'll give you a link that will take you into the reception. The reception is called a national group. So we have national groups starting from 1 up to, I think now we are standing at 13. Now, the idea is that until the national group 1 gets full, remember WhatsApp group is only up to 1,025 members. All right, then we open another WhatsApp group. Now, when you are sitting in that WhatsApp group called the national group, then we initiate you, or rather introduce you to what the movement really means and what is expected of you. When you then make a decision that this sounds good, I want to align, that is when we can then take you to join the other groups, particularly where you are domiciled in. If you are in Mansa, we'll then connect you to be part of the Mansa chapter. So you become part of the Mansa chapter. And then we also start to identify those with different competences. If you are good with media, then we will then put you in the media group. If you are good, you are a technical person, you have studied mining, we'll take you in the other technical group where you meet great minds. Because from now on, when we speak to issues of policy, it will be informed by technical people. We cannot be a young people that just chant change. We must be speaking to policy, or we must be speaking to that change we envision. That is basically, so there are platforms everywhere, whether you are in Mongu, you are in Kasempa, there is a group where you are in Kasempa, you must belong to that group, so that you are part of the conversation in that area where you reside.
Thank you very much. And I guess on that particular note, we are coming to the conclusion of this particular live stream. Of course, this has been very insightful. And Honorable Mpundu, your last remarks before we say goodbye.
Well, my last remarks, particularly, let me start with making an appeal to the UPND. All of us are prepared and willing to support a very legitimate, a very genuine, a very transparent, process to amend the Constitution, because we believe that there's nothing sinister in embarking on a constitution amendment. There are quite a number of clauses in the Constitution that may need to be attended to, but it will take honesty and transparency for all of us to jump on board and be able to support that process. All right. That is why I am calling on the UPND to speak to issues of consensus. Let us, build consensus on what clauses. So the UPND must be magnanimous to state the clauses they want to amend, publish those clauses by way of whatever, whether it's a draft or otherwise, so that we, the public, can then have an input as whether we support those clauses or we can make additions to that. So we must never take this process secretive, because it can breed so much confusion in the country. Lastly, Muna, I want to appeal to the young people. For so long, we have not taken an interest in affairs of the country, which is why the many old folks we have entrusted power, in, have taken us for a ride, which is why every day it's issues of corruption, it's issues of malpractices and all that stuff. Time has come for the young people to get involved. I laugh at people who say they are not interested in politics, yet alone politics, rules. Politics dictates their lives. It dictates what you put on. It dictates what you eat. It dictates the mode of transport and everything else. So there's no citizens who should say, I'm not interested in politics. Yes, you may not be interested in politics by way of fully participating, becoming an MP or councillor, but you must take an interest by speaking out on issues that are not making sense, or making proposals on what can work best for the country. And ultimately, you must participate by way of voting or taking part in the electoral processes. Time has come for the young people, I want to conclude, to take the lead. Now, to take the lead would mean young people coming together. And which is why we have created a special vehicle we are calling Ichabai, the Movement for Good Governance, or you can call it Kiabanike, Sabanana, Njabana, or Chabafana. The idea is that time has come for the young people to get together, because we are only stronger when we are together. We are weak when we are divided. And oftentimes, the old people will come and sponsor confusions among young people. They will dangle a carrot. And so young people must be, open-minded to see that these, they don't mean well. If they come with money, just know they are bringing confusion and they do not mean well for you. So once again, we all must be patriots who must pay particular, interest in the affairs of this country, and in one way or another, we must all contribute to the well-being of this country. We cannot allow the country to continue being labeled the most poorest country or the 60th poorest country, when this country is amassed with wealth. And when we talk about wealth, we are talking about mineral resources, we are talking about arable land that can produce food to feed the country and the entire region. How else can we be labeled a poor country amidst so much plenty that God has blessed us? I'll tell you, it's about leadership. And time has come for us to open a new chapter of new generational leaders that should be able to take us to the next destination as a country. Thank you so much, Muna.
Thank you, Honorable. It was a pleasure having you. Looking forward to having more conversations as time goes by. And I believe you are a very busy man, so I wouldn't want to waste much of your time. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
participating. And,
Fantastic.
we'll continue
Always
talking
available
about
for you, Muna. Very well. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Honorable.
You too, my brother. Thanks.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So this was an exciting live stream of Z Corner. Of course, we have been very, very, quiet for the past couple of years, but we are back again. So we're going to be having these live streams, hopefully on a daily basis. But for now, we're just going to be streaming Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So to all the people who will be looking forward to participating, the link is always going to be shared in the comment section below. Without wasting much of your time, thank you very much. Thank you for all the comments, all your opinions, and all the likes that you gave us. So have a blessed day, have a productive week, and talk to you on Friday. So remember, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m., aka 19 hours, we are going to be live talking about a lot of issues that are going to be affecting, or rather, that are affecting the nation. So it's been a pleasure having you, and obviously, you being part of our live stream. Talk to you a little bit later. God bless you and take care.